Hi, this is Vicki Tayton, and this is another recorded lecture for DMA C107, Computer Illustration with Illustrator. This lecture is on transformation techniques. You can follow along using the associated page in our Canvas class module, or you can watch this on YouTube and utilize captions. Illustrator's transformation features can change objects in a variety of ways. You can scale and rotate an object with the bounding box, as we saw last time. So when you select an object, a bounding box appears. You can resize it. You can constrain the resizing by holding down the Shift key. You can move your cursor to the outside, where it becomes a curved arrow, and use that to rotate. You can also rotate, reflect, twirl, scale, and shear with the transform tools that we'll take a look at in a couple of minutes, and those are in the middle of the toolbox. There's a menu command under Object right at the top that is Transform, and you can choose any of the individual types of transformation, or if you applied some kind of transformation and you want to repeat that, you can just use Transform again. If you do open up the Transform dialog box in order to, in order to do something, here's a dialog box, and you want to keep the original, but have a second with the angles and other values that you've applied, you can just hit copy, and that will create a copy of your original, leave your original intact, and create a copy with those values. You can also use the transform palette. If you don't see that, go up to Window and go all the way down to Transform, and that will pop up. And when you use Transform, it will tell you, it will give you a X and a Y, or X and a Y value. It will give you a width and a height value. It will give you the rotate and the shear, so you can put in your own values there and do some transformation. Offset path is a useful method of creating a duplicate path that is offset a specified distance from the original. If you'd like to do that, go up to Object, go down to Path, go down to Offset Path, and you can put in some values here. So if I wanted to offset this maybe 1/4 inch, and I want my joints to stay, let's try beveled, and I can say OK, and now I have a new path applied around my other path, and they're two separate paths, so there are lots of things you could do with that. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and delete that one. And then there are also a series of transforming effects that can be applied from the Effects, Distort, and Transform menu. So you can free distort, pucker and bloat, roughen, transform, tweak, twist, zigzag. So give those a try. That can be kind of fun. Just show you briefly what it, oops. Oh, I don't have anything. Oops. Got to select something first. get some pretty cool results from that. Okay, and now in the toolbox you have some transformation tools. Some of them are hidden underneath others. So normally you'll see the rotate tool, and you'll see that the reflect tool is located underneath it. And then over here we have the scale tool along with the shear and the reshape tool. Now there's 3 ways that you could use the rotate, reflect, twirl, scale, and shear tools after you've selected an object. So let's go up here and make sure we have an object selected. And then let's just try the shear tool. And then once you've got that, you want to Alt, if you're on Windows, or Option, click a point of reference, and that will bring up a dialog box. So that you can enter some values. You can also, and again you have the option to copy. You can also just click anywhere inside to establish a point of reference, and then just drag to create your desired effect. You can also select the object, use the transform palette, and select an orientation point over here in this small bounding box icon. Let's see. There we go. And then enter some values in this field. So let's just let's try height and width, and that will apply those values. The transform dialog boxes can be accessed in 2 ways. You can select the transform tool and then Alt click or Option click at the desired point of reference, or you can go up, as we saw earlier, to the Object Transform menu and then select the transformation that you want. And the transform dialog boxes provide a benefit of entering like precise values. Also provides the option of allowing you to apply the transformation to a copy of the original, which will leave the original in its previous state. This can be very useful. You can also enter values in the transform palette. And as we mentioned, you can change the reference point here. Oops, I want to cancel that. By default, it's in the center. If you wanted to resize a square, let's go ahead and draw a square. And you wanted the top left corner to remain in the same position, you would just go ahead and click that top left point of reference. And then when I enter in the width and height, it's going to rescale, but that corner is going to stay the same. So I guess I want to keep this a square. So it didn't move anywhere, it just expanded from that point. The transform palette also has a pop-up menu in the upper right. And from that menu, you can flip horizontally or flip vertically, which is the same as reflecting. Okay, let's see, I'm going to delete that. And then, actually, I want to undo that. I want to keep that. So, repeating the last performed transformation is easy. You can either use a keyboard shortcut, which would be Command or Control D, and that just applied the last transformation that I did actually with the square. Oh no, actually it applied the same transformation that I did with the star. If you prefer a menu sequence, just go up to Object, Transform, and say Transform Again. I think that was because I deleted it. And the transform again will work whether you use any of the following methods to transform. If you clicked and dragged with the transform tool, so let's just go ahead and I'll just rotate this. If I want to repeat that, it's just going to rotate it the same amount. If you Alt click or Option click, and if that's the way you applied the transformations, then it would still work. If you did Object, Transform, Transform Again, or if you use the menu. If you get something that you like and you want to duplicate that, you can also Alt click or Option click on an object and create a duplicate. Oops. You need to select it. And then if you use Control or Command D, it will repeat that duplication and distance each new object exactly the same as the first duplication. So you can see where that would be really handy. And then you can also use the copy button in the transform dialog box as we saw earlier. So if I have that open, oops, got to select something. Hit copy and it's going to duplicate it. So numerous ways to do the same thing. Put this to use in an example. If we wanted to create precise increments on the face of a clock, here's what we would do. First thing we need to do is to create a circle for the face of the clock. So I'm going to hold down, I selected the ellipse tool, and I'm going to hold down the Shift key so that I'm drawing a perfect circle. I'm also going to hold down the space bar so that, whoops, and what happened was I let go. So let me delete this and do that again. I want a perfect circle. Don't release your mouse until you have it just where you want it, which I keep doing. One more time. Okay, and then let go of your mouse and then the Shift key, and that will keep your circle perfect. If you're not already in outline view, then go up to View, and Preview shows you you may be seeing preview with all of your fill and stroke. And if you are, just go up to outline so that you're not distracted by the color and everything. And then use the selection tool to select the whole line, or, oh, sorry, I'm missing a step. So let me go back. I want to use the pen tool and create a short line segment. So I'm going to click and hold down Shift to create a very short line segment for the 12 o'clock tick mark. And holding down the Shift key just ensures that the line is perfectly vertical. Oops. And then go ahead and hit return so that you end that line. Now use the selection tool again to select the whole line segment. And you want to make sure that both of these anchor points are solid. Now, you can see it might be, there you go. The center of the circle is evident when I'm in outline view. So I want to choose the rotate tool, which, as you remember, is over in the toolbox. And go ahead and Alt or Option click exactly on the center of the circle. And now we get the rotate dialog box, and we want to create tick marks for all the minutes. So there's 60 minutes in an hour, and there are 360 degrees in a circle. Therefore, the tick marks must be 6 degrees apart. So go ahead and enter 6 into the dialog box, and don't click OK. You're going to hit copy. And a duplicate of the tick mark will appear 6 degrees apart from the first one. Now we're just going to use our keyboard commands, so Control or Command D, until tick marks have been placed all around the circle. Oops. If you mess up, just make sure you select that line again. And keep going all the way around. It's like watching grass grow. Almost there. There we go. All right, now to make the hour marks more visible, we're going to make them longer. And we're just going to scale one of the anchor points for each of those tick marks. So using the direct selection tool, which is the hollow or white arrow, go ahead and select only the inner anchor point of every 5th line. And you hold down the Shift key to select after you select the first one, hold down the Shift key. So 1, 2, 3, 4, Okay. Now select the scale tool and Alt or Option click on the center point of the circle again. Now it's asking us, what do we want to scale? And we're defining the point around which the scale will appear by selecting the center. So in the first field, we're going to go ahead and put in 90%. Oops. Oh, sorry. And this is going to we're telling the selected anchor points to be reduced by 90% in relationship to the point of reference, which is the center of the circle. So we're just going to say OK. I think I might have made a mistake. Sorry. I'm just going to move forward, but I made a little mistake probably when I hit return by accident. So instead of doing all of that again, I'll let you do that final step by yourselves. Okay, if you transform a shape that is filled with a pattern or has a stroke, you have the option of transforming just the object, just the pattern, just the stroke width, or any combination of those options. So in the scale dialog box, let me go ahead and draw something. And I'm going to go back to preview. If we go up to Object Transform Scale, look at the Scale dialog box, and you can specify whether you want to scale the strokes and effects, or and if you do that, you just click that. Let me set this up a little bit better. Let's see. So let's go ahead and fill this with a pattern. And then select it. Make sure we're selected. Now if I'm going to put this at 50%. And I want to scale the strokes. I get a preview and that shows me what it looks like. If I don't scale, then, okay. Sorry, I want to do that again. So let's go 110 and let's scale and let's do a copy. Okay. And then I want to transform patterns. You can see how the pattern size grew. I didn't increase that very much, so let me try that one more time. And we'll do 200%. And we won't scale, but we will, and if we didn't transform our pattern, so hopefully you can see all those differences there. So here's the pattern was not transformed. If I went back and transformed and scaled again, let's just do it 50% this time and transform pattern and copy. So I think you get the idea there. There's different ways you have a choice of whether your stroke is going to scale along with the object and your pattern. And similarly, let's see if I can just get rid of a couple of these. If you rotate, you can rotate. Let's go ahead and select. So I have, let's do a 45-degree angle. And I can choose to transform the pattern, or I can leave the pattern as it was. So there we go. I can go ahead and do a couple different ones. I think you get the picture of this. So this pattern possibly isn't the best, but I think you can tell that it did rotate in some of these, and some of these it stayed the same. So didn't rotate. And the same with the stroke. If you want to shift a pattern inside an object, go ahead and you can use the object, select object, transform, move. And if you do that and you select transform pattern, you can specify, or you can, let's try moving the angle. If this moved the object and the pattern, if you want just the pattern to move, you need to just transform the pattern. So let's try just changing the angle. There we go. And let's copy that. And that just moved the pattern itself, very slightly. Okay, so there's other effects that you can create. You can, it's not really, the offset path is not really categorized with the transform tools or functions, but it's often very useful when used in conjunction with them. So if you go up to Object, Path, oops, I have to, sorry, select Object, Path, Offset Path. You can, if you have a positive value here, it's going to create a new path outside of the original. We saw this. I'm just going to go back to miter. A negative value, so if I had a minus 2.5, that would place it inside. So the new path is in here. And an offset path is different from scaling. So say I wanted to create a border for a name tag with different colored stripes. We could start with the basic border. And if we wanted a larger version to add a stripe, simply resizing it wouldn't make the edges equal distance from each other. However, if you use offset path, then the new border is going to follow the original perfectly, offset by the same distance. You can create an outline path. I'm going to go ahead and cancel that. Just by increasing the weight of a stroke. However, you might want to have a gradient border or fill it with a texture. And to do this, you would have to convert the stroked path to a filled compound shape. A compound shape is comprised of two paths, and the interior path cuts a hole in the shape like a window frame. If you want to outline a path, go up to Object, Path, Outline Stroke, and it converts it right away. And then finally, there are some filters under the actually, these are a little bit different from your, I think in 2020, in Illustrator CC, these have been updated. So you do have some distortions. So you have things like pucker and bloat, which I think I showed you that. You've got warp. Can't remember where I had pucker and bloat. But those can give you some funky results, some funky transformation effects, and you'll probably want to give those a try. Just create like a straight line or a shape and go through and just experiment with all of those. All right, I hope this has been a useful addition to the lecture. and I will see you next time.